The champagne glass exploded against the marble floor. Every head in the grand imperial ballroom turned to stare at the black man in the ill-fitting suit standing 3 feet behind Catherine Wells, the most powerful female CEO in America. "Did her charity case just make a mess?" Someone whispered loud enough for the whole room to hear. How embarrassing. Poor Catherine. But Marcus Thompson didn't bend down to clean it. He didn't apologize. He didn't even flinch. He just smiled. Because he knew something none of them did. Something that would destroy every assumption in this room in exactly 14 minutes. If you want to see the satisfying moment when these elite guests realize they picked the wrong man to mock, stay right here. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The morning Marcus Thompson's life changed forever started like every other morning for the past 14 years. His alarm went off at 4:47 a.m., not 4:45, not 4:50, exactly 4:47, because that gave him precisely 13 minutes to shower dress and start breakfast before his twin daughters needed to wake up for school. Routine was everything when you were raising 2 teenage girls alone. Marcus stood in front of the bathroom mirror, studying the gray creeping into his temples. 42 years old. When did that happen? It felt like yesterday. He was 28 holding 2 newborn babies in his arms while a doctor told him his wife didn't survive the delivery. "Daddy." A sleepy voice from the hallway. "Zoe, baby, go back to bed. You've got 20 more minutes." "Can't sleep. Maya's snoring again." Marcus chuckled. "Your sister doesn't snore." "She sounds like a freight train, Dad. I'm traumatized." "Go put a pillow over your head." "That's not a solution. That's attempted suffocation." "Zoe." "Fine, but I'm telling my therapist about this." "You don't have a therapist." "I will after 14 years of living with Maya." Marcus heard her shuffle back to her room, still muttering complaints. He smiled at his reflection. Those girls were the only reason he got out of bed every morning. The only reason he worked double shifts at the community center. The only reason he kept going when everything inside him wanted to stop. 14 years. He'd been doing this alone for 14 years. By 5:30 a.m., Marcus had eggs scrambling on the stove toast in the toaster and orange juice poured into 3 glasses. Always 3, even though 1 chair at their small kitchen table had been empty since the day the girls were born. "Morning, Dad." Maya appeared first, already dressed in her school uniform, hair pulled back in a neat ponytail. She was the organized one, the planner, the one who reminded Marcus about permission slips and parent-teacher conferences. "Morning, baby. Sleep okay?" "Zoe kept me up talking in her sleep." "That's not true." Zoe appeared behind her hair-wild uniform wrinkled. "I don't talk in my sleep. You said, and I quote, 'The dolphins are coming for the pizza.' What does that even mean?" "It means I was having an awesome dream before you ruined it." Marcus set plates on the table. "Eat, both of you. Bus comes in 30 minutes. The girls sat down, still bickering. Marcus watched them for a moment, his heart full and aching at the same time. They looked so much like Angela. Same eyes, same stubborn jaw, same way of tilting their heads when they were thinking hard about something. "Dad," Maya looked up from her eggs. "You okay?" "I'm fine, baby. Just thinking." "About Mom?" Marcus nodded. He never lied to his girls about that. Zoe reached over and squeezed his hand. "She'd be proud of you, Dad. You know that, right?" "I know." He squeezed back. "Now eat. You're gonna miss the bus." The Bronx Community Center sat on the corner of 149th and 3rd, sandwiched between a laundromat and a bodega. It wasn't much to look at: cracked concrete steps, faded paint windows that hadn't been updated since Reagan was president. But to Marcus, it was everything. He'd been working here for 11 years, started as a janitor, worked his way up to facilities manager, and somewhere along the way became the unofficial director of the after-school program that nobody else wanted to run. Mr. T. A group of kids swarmed him the moment he walked through the door. Deshaun, 15, already 6 feet tall and built like he belonged on a basketball court. Keisha, 13, quieter than the others, but sharp as a knife. Little Marcus, no relation, 8 years old, missing 2 front teeth, always asking questions. What we learning today, Mr. T? Patience, Deshaun. You're learning patience. That's boring. That's life. Now go set up the chairs. We've got 20 kids coming in an hour. The after-school program had started small, just Marcus and a handful of kids who had nowhere else to go. He taught them whatever they needed, homework help mostly, but also life skills. How to write a resume. How to shake hands and look someone in the eye. How to speak up in a world that constantly told them to be quiet. Then someone had brought in a broken laptop and Marcus had fixed it. Then another. Then another. Pretty soon he was running a makeshift computer lab with donated equipment, teaching coding to teenagers who'd never touched a keyboard before. Mr. T, the Wi-Fi's down again. I know, Keisha. I'm working on it. Can we learn Portuguese today instead? Marcus looked up. Keisha was standing by the whiteboard, dry erase marker in hand. You finished the French exercises. And the Spanish ones, and the Mandarin ones. Portuguese is next on my list. Marcus smiled. Keisha reminded him of himself at her age. Hungry for knowledge. Desperate to understand a world that seemed designed to keep her out. All right, gather the advanced group. We'll do 30 minutes of Portuguese basics. Yes, Keisha pumped her fist and ran to collect the others. Languages had always been Marcus's gift. His mother, a refugee from the Democratic Republic of Congo, had spoken Swahili French and Lingala. His father, a teacher from Haiti, had spoken Creole French and English. Growing up in their cramped apartment, Marcus had absorbed everything like a sponge. By the time he was 18, he spoke 6 languages fluently. By 25, he'd added 2 more. Not that anyone knew. Not that anyone cared. When people looked at Marcus Thompson, black man, no college degree janitor's uniform, they didn't see a polyglot. They didn't see someone who'd taught himself Mandarin by watching Chinese soap operas after his daughters went to bed. They didn't see the man who translated legal documents for immigrants in the neighborhood pro bono because no one else would. They just saw what they expected to see. And Marcus had stopped trying to change their minds a long time ago. The email arrived at 2:34 p.m. Marcus was in the middle of fixing a clogged toilet, glamorous work truly, when his phone buzzed. From Human Resources, Wells Technologies, subject interview request, community relations position. Marcus stared at the screen. Read it twice, 3 times. Wells Technologies, the tech giant, the company that had been all over the news lately for their controversial expansion into Africa. The company run by Catherine Wells, the youngest female CEO of a Fortune 500 company, known for being brilliant, ruthless, and completely intolerant of anything she considered beneath her. They wanted to interview him. Mr. T, you okay? You look like you saw a ghost. Deshaun was standing in the doorway. I'm fine. Just unexpected news. Good unexpected or bad unexpected? Marcus looked at his phone again. I honestly have no idea. The interview was scheduled for 3 days later. Marcus almost didn't go. Dad, you have to go. Maya sat on his bed watching him panic about his closet. This is a huge opportunity. They probably made a mistake. Wrong Marcus Thompson. There are approximately 0 other Marcus Thompsons in the Bronx running viral literacy programs. How do you know about that video? Dad, everyone knows about that video. You've got like 2 million views. Marcus sat down on the bed. I didn't ask for that video. I know, but it happened. And now a Fortune 500 company wants to meet you. This is a good thing. Is it? Marcus looked at his daughter. Maya, these people aren't like us. They live in a different world. So you've been teaching us our whole lives that we belong anywhere we want to be, that we shouldn't let anyone put us in a box. Were you lying? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. No, I wasn't lying. Then prove it. Maya handed him his best shirt. Iron this again. You missed a spot. Wells Technologies headquarters occupied 47 floors of a glass tower in Midtown Manhattan. Marcus had walked past it 100 times without ever imagining he'd walk through the front door. The lobby alone was bigger than the entire community center. Marble floors, soaring ceilings, people in suits that probably cost more than his rent. Marcus approached the reception desk, suddenly very aware of the wrinkles in his shirt, the scuff marks on his shoes, the way his tie felt like it was strangling him. "Can I help you?" The receptionist didn't look up from her computer. "I have an interview. Marcus Thompson." "Thompson? Thompson?" She scrolled through her screen. "Ah, here we are. 15th floor. Take the elevator on the left." "Thank you." She still didn't look up. The elevator was glass, and Marcus could see the city shrinking beneath him as he rose. His stomach did a slow flip. He thought about his daughters, about the kids at the community center, about Angela gone 14 years, but still the voice in his head telling him he could do anything. The doors opened. A young woman with a tablet was waiting. "Mr. Thompson, I'm Jessica, Ms. Wells' assistant. Follow me, please." She walked fast. Marcus struggled to keep up without actually running. "The interview will be conducted by Ms. Wells personally," Jessica said, not looking back. "She's on a tight schedule, so please keep your answers concise. Don't volunteer information she doesn't ask for. Don't make eye contact for longer than 3 seconds. Don't..." "Wait." Marcus stopped walking. "Don't make eye contact for longer than 3 seconds." Jessica turned, finally looking at him. Her expression softened slightly. "It's... Ms. Wells prefers directness. She doesn't like small talk, and she finds prolonged eye contact aggressive." "Good to know." Jessica hesitated. "Mr. Thompson, a word of advice." "Sure." "This company has been under a lot of scrutiny lately. The African expansion isn't going well, and the board is pushing for a friendlier face. Someone relatable. The truth is they probably brought you in because of the optics. Black man from the Bronx, heartwarming video, good story for the press." She paused. "I'm not saying that to be cruel. I'm saying it so you understand what you're walking into." Marcus studied her face. She was young, mid-20s maybe, and there was something in her eyes that reminded him of Keisha. Like she'd been overlooked too many times and had learned to see the world more clearly because of it. "Thank you for telling me that." "Don't thank me. Just be careful." Catherine Wells was on a conference call when Marcus entered her office. She held up one finger, without glancing in his direction. Marcus stood by the door. Waited. Tried not to look at anything too closely, but it was hard. Her office was 3 times the size of his apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. Artwork on the walls that probably cost more than he'd earned in his entire life. "I don't care about the timeline. I care about results." Catherine's voice was sharp, precise. "Fix it by Friday, or don't bother coming to the board meeting." She ended the call and finally turned to face him. Catherine Wells was 40, though she looked younger. Everything about her was polished hair, nails, suit expression. She studied Marcus the way a scientist might study a specimen under a microscope. "Marcus Thompson." "Ms. Wells." "Sit." He sat. "I've seen your video." She pulled up something on her computer. 2.3 million views. "Bronx janitor teaches homeless teens to code." Heartwarming. The board loved it. "I wasn't aware there was a video until it went viral." "That's part of the appeal. Authentic, unpolished, real." She said the words like they tasted strange in her mouth. "Tell me about your background." "I run the after-school program at the Bronx Community Center. Have for 11 years. Before that, I was facilities manager there. Before that, a janitor. Yes, I read your file." She leaned back in her chair. No college degree, no professional experience outside of manual labor. No connections in this industry. Why do you think you're qualified for a position at Wells Technologies? Marcus felt his jaw tighten. Because I understand communities. I've spent my entire career working with people who've been overlooked, underserved, forgotten. If your company wants to expand into developing regions, you need someone who actually understands what those communities need, not someone who read about it in a case study. Catherine's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Interest, amusement, Marcus couldn't tell. You have children. The question caught him off guard. Twin daughters, 14. Their mother passed away when they were born. So you've raised them alone for 14 years while working full-time and running a volunteer program? Yes. Catherine made a small humming sound. That's either admirable or masochistic. I haven't decided which. She stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the city. Here's what's going to happen, Mr. Thompson. I'm going to offer you a job. Not because I think you're qualified, frankly you're not, but because my board is demanding a friendlier face after our last PR disaster. You're going to be head of community relations. You'll smile for cameras. You'll attend events. You'll make us look good. She turned to face him. You will not contribute to strategy meetings. You will not offer opinions on company direction. You will not pretend to understand the complexities of running a global technology enterprise. You will do exactly what you're told, when you're told, and nothing more. She tilted her head. Are we clear? Marcus didn't answer immediately. He thought about his daughters, about the opportunity, about the way Jessica had looked at him in the hallway. He thought about his mother who'd cleaned houses for white families for 30 years, and his father who'd taught middle school for even longer, and how both of them had told him the same thing. Sometimes you take the door that opens, and once you're inside, you show them exactly who you are. Crystal clear, Ms. Wells. Good. Report to HR tomorrow. They'll set up your office. She was already looking at her computer again, dismissing him. And Mr. Thompson? Yes. Get a better suit. The one you're wearing looks like it came from a Goodwill. Marcus stood, walked to the door, then stopped. Ms. Wells? She looked up, irritated at being addressed again. My suit did come from Goodwill. Most of my clothes do. But my mother used to say something, you can tell everything about a person by how they treat people who can do nothing for them. He paused. I imagine you've never had to learn that lesson. For a moment, just a moment, Catherine Wells looked genuinely surprised. Then the mask slid back into place. Get out of my office, Mr. Thompson. He left. So, how'd it go? Maya and Zoe were waiting on the couch when Marcus got home like anxious parents waiting for a teenager to return from a date. I got the job. The girls screamed, actually screamed, jumped off the couch and tackled him in a hug. Dad! Oh my God, Dad! This is amazing. What's the salary? Is it a lot? Are we rich now? Marcus laughed, holding them tight. We're not rich, and I'm not sure this is good news. What do you mean? Maya pulled back, studying his face. Dad, what happened? Marcus sat down heavily on the couch, told them everything. The office, the interview, what Catherine had said about his role, what she'd said about his suit. When he finished, the girls were quiet for a long moment. Then Zoe said, She sounds like a witch. Zoe. What she does? Who says that to someone? Someone who's been at the top so long she forgot what it's like at the bottom. Marcus shook his head. The point is, I'm not walking into a job. I'm walking into a performance. They want a prop, not a person. So why'd you take it? Maya asked quietly. Marcus looked at his daughter. She had her mother's eyes, Angela's eyes, the same eyes that had looked at him 14 years ago and said, I believe in you, no matter what. Because sometimes, Marcus said slowly, you take the door that opens. And once you're inside, you show them exactly who you are. Maya nodded. Grandpa used to say that. He did, and Grandma too. So you're going to go in there, Zoe said, And you're going to do more than smile for cameras. You're going to actually do something. That's the plan. Even though they told you not to. Especially because they told me not to. Zoe grinned. That's our dad. Marcus pulled both girls close again, breathing in the familiar scent of them shampoo and teenage defiance, and something that was just uniquely his daughter's. Whatever happens, he said quietly, I need you both to know something. No matter what those people think of me, no matter what they say, you are the most important thing in my life. Everything I do for you. And nothing they throw at me is going to change that. We know, Dad, Maya whispered. We always know, Zoe added. Outside, the Bronx was coming alive with evening noise cars, honking kids, shouting the endless heartbeat of the city. Inside this small apartment, Marcus held his daughters and tried not to think about the storm that was coming. He didn't know yet how bad it would get. He didn't know about the meetings where he'd be silenced. The colleagues who would mock him behind his back. The moment when Catherine would use his report as a coaster, not even bothering to pretend she cared about his ideas. He didn't know about the night his daughters would come home crying because their classmates had found out their father used to be a janitor. The night Maya would ask if they could just move somewhere else and start over. He didn't know that in 4 months he would stand in a room full of the most powerful people in New York City, and they would look at him like he was nothing, like he was less than nothing, like he was a stain on Catherine Wells's expensive reputation. And he definitely didn't know that in exactly 4 months, one shattered champagne glass would change everything. But he would find out. They all would. Marcus's first day at Wells Technologies started at 8:00 a.m. and went downhill from there. His office was a converted supply closet. Literally, there were still shelves on the wall where cleaning products had been stored, faint chemical smells lingering in the air, and a single small window that looked out at a brick wall approximately 3 feet away. This is my office. Jessica, who had led him here, at least had the decency to look embarrassed. Ms. Wells felt that space was at a premium on the executive floor. This was available. It's a closet. It's been converted. By adding a desk, and a chair, and a computer. Jessica paused. There's also a plant. I brought it myself. I thought it might help. Marcus looked at the sad little succulent sitting on the corner of the desk. Despite everything, he felt a surge of gratitude toward this young woman, who was clearly trying to make an impossible situation slightly less terrible. Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate it. You're welcome. She hesitated. Mr. Thompson, I know how this looks, but try to give it a chance. Sometimes things aren't as bad as they seem, and sometimes they're worse. Jessica didn't argue. The first meeting was scheduled for 10:00 a.m. Executive strategy session, mandatory attendance for all department heads. Marcus walked into the conference room and immediately felt like he'd entered the wrong building. 20 people sat around a massive table, all of them polished, confident, speaking in abbreviations and jargon that might as well have been a foreign language. Actually, no. Marcus spoke 8 foreign languages. This was worse. Ah, there he is. A man at the far end of the table spoke up, tall, blonde, expensive haircut. The famous Marcus Thompson, our new community relations star. Bradley Morrison, COO. Jessica whispered, appearing at Marcus's elbow. Watch out for him. Marcus nodded slightly and moved toward the only empty chair at the very end of the table, as far from the actual decision-makers as physically possible. Please take a seat. Catherine's voice cut through the murmur of conversations. Let's not waste time. Marcus sat. For the next 45 minutes, he listened to discussions about quarterly projections, market penetration strategies, competitive analyses. None of it involved him. No one asked his opinion. No one even looked in his direction, until they started discussing Africa. The Kenya initiative is a disaster. Victoria Chen, CFO, pulled up a chart. We're hemorrhaging money and the local press is brutal. They're calling us neo-colonialists. Because we basically are, someone muttered. We're not neo-colonialists, Catherine said sharply. We're bringing technology and opportunity to underserved regions. If they can't see the value, perhaps, Marcus heard himself say, they see exactly the value, and that's the problem. The room went silent. Every head turned toward the end of the table. Catherine's eyes narrowed. Excuse me. Marcus's heart was pounding, but he kept his voice steady. I've been reading the local coverage. The Kenyan press isn't calling you neo-colonialists because of the technology. They're calling you neo-colonialists because of the contracts. You're partnering with local governments but cutting out local businesses. You're bringing in American managers instead of training local leaders. You're extracting value instead of building community. Bradley Morrison laughed. And you learned this from cleaning toilets. Marcus didn't flinch. I learned this from listening, something this company apparently forgot how to do. The silence stretched. Marcus could feel the anger radiating off Catherine like heat from a furnace. Mr. Thompson, she said finally, her voice like ice. Your job is community relations, not strategy, not policy, not telling this board how to run a multi-billion-dollar operation. She stood signaling the meeting was over. Perhaps you should focus on what you were hired to do. Smile for cameras. Look relatable. Leave the thinking to people with actual qualifications. She walked out. The rest of the executives followed, several of them shooting Marcus looks that ranged from pity to contempt. Bradley Morrison paused at the door. Word of advice, janitor. Know your place. Then he was gone. Marcus sat alone in the empty conference room, staring at the expensive table, the expensive chairs, the expensive artwork on the walls. Know your place. He thought about his mother scrubbing floors for families who never learned her name. He thought about his father teaching kids who would never know he'd written 3 unpublished novels in French. He thought about Angela, who'd worked 2 jobs to support his dreams before the pregnancy complications took her away. Know your place. Marcus had heard that phrase his entire life. From teachers who thought a black kid from the projects couldn't learn calculus. From employers who saw his zip code and tossed his resume in the trash. From a world that constantly relentlessly tried to convince him that he was less than. He took out his phone, looked at the photo of his daughters on the home screen. Both of them grinning, arms around each other, wearing matching shirts that said, Thompson Girls. Know your place. My place, Marcus said quietly to the empty room, is wherever I decide it is. And then he went back to his supply closet and started working. That night, Marcus didn't go home right away. He sat in his cramped office, door closed, reading everything he could find about Wells Technologies' African expansion. The contracts, the partnerships, the local coverage that the executives clearly hadn't bothered to translate. Marcus read it all. In French, in Swahili, in Portuguese. And what he found made his stomach turn. The contracts weren't just unfavorable to local communities, they were exploitative. The partnerships weren't really partnerships, they were extractions. And the local coverage wasn't just negative, it was warning of a coming backlash that could destroy everything Wells Technologies had built. By midnight, Marcus had filled an entire notebook with observations, suggestions, alternatives. By 2 a.m., he'd started drafting a formal report. By the time the sun came up, he had 47 pages of detailed analysis and recommendations. He sent it to Catherine's office marked urgent. Then he went home to make breakfast for his daughters. 3 days passed. No response. A week, nothing. Marcus kept doing his job, the job they wanted him to do. Smiling for cameras, attending community events, being paraded around like a prop to prove Wells Technologies cared about diversity. But every night, he stayed late in his supply closet, refining his report, adding new information, building a case that no one was asking for. Until the afternoon, he walked past the executive conference room and saw something that made his blood run cold. Through the glass walls, he could see Catherine at the head of the table, running another strategy meeting about Africa. And on the table in front of her, serving as a coaster for her coffee cup, was a stack of papers. His stack of papers. His 47-page report, with a coffee ring soaking through the cover page. Catherine caught his eye through the glass. For one moment they stared at each other. The billionaire CEO and the former janitor. The woman who had everything and the man she thought had nothing. Then, Catherine deliberately lifted her coffee cup, took a sip, and set it back down on his report. And smiled. Marcus walked away. He went back to his supply closet, closed the door, and sat in the dark for a very long time. This was worse than being ignored. This was deliberate humiliation. This was Catherine making absolutely sure he understood exactly how little his ideas, how little he mattered to her. His phone buzzed. A text from Zoe. "Hey, Dad. Maya and I made dinner. Your favorite. Come home soon." Marcus stared at the message. His girls. His reason for everything. He thought about quitting, about walking out, about telling Catherine exactly what he thought of her and her company, and her contempt for everyone she considered beneath her. But then he heard his father's voice in his head, the way he always did in moments like this. "Son, the world is going to underestimate you. Let them. Because when you're underestimated, you're invisible. And when you're invisible, you can do things no one expects." Marcus stood up. He wasn't going to quit. He wasn't going to give them the satisfaction. He was going to keep working, keep watching, keep waiting. Because sooner or later an opportunity would come. And when it did, Marcus Thompson was going to show every single person at Wells Technologies exactly who they'd been overlooking. 2 weeks after the coffee cup incident, things got worse. Marcus learned quickly that there were levels of contempt he hadn't even imagined. Catherine's silent dismissal had been cruel, but at least it was quiet. Bradley Morrison and Victoria Chen were not quiet. "Here comes our diversity hire." Bradley's voice carried across the executive cafeteria like he wanted everyone to hear, because he did. "Tell me, Thompson, what insights from the mop closet are you bringing us today?" Marcus kept walking toward an empty table tray in hand. "Don't engage. Don't give them the satisfaction. I heard he used to clean toilets." Victoria didn't bother lowering her voice either. "Catherine really knows how to pick them. What's next hiring a homeless person to run finance? Laughter. Polished, expensive laughter from people who had never worried about making rent in their lives." Marcus sat down, ate his sandwich, didn't look up, but he heard every word. "You know what I don't understand?" Bradley had moved to a table closer to Marcus, now still performing for his audience. "Why even pretend everyone knows why he's here? It's a tax write-off, a PR stunt. Does anyone actually believe he contributes anything?" "I heard he submitted some kind of report." Victoria again. 40 pages of suggestions from a man who's never run anything larger than a broom. More laughter. Marcus finished his sandwich, stood up, walked his tray to the return station. As he passed Bradley's table, the COO called out, "Hey Thompson, word of advice. The janitor's closet is on the 3rd floor, in case you get confused about where you belong." Marcus stopped. For one long moment, he stood there with his back to them, every muscle in his body coiled tight. He thought about turning around, thought about saying something, thought about 14 years of raising his daughters alone, of working double shifts, of teaching himself languages in the dark hours of the night while the world slept. Then he thought about his father, who had endured worse. His mother, who had endured worse. Angela, who had believed in him when no one else did. He kept walking. Behind him, Bradley was still laughing. That night, Marcus came home late. The girls were already in bed, but Maya had left a note on the kitchen table. "Dad left over pasta in the fridge. Don't forget to eat. We love you." He sat down heavily at the table, staring at the note. His daughter's handwriting. Careful and precise, just like her. He didn't eat the pasta. He just sat there in the dark, wondering if he'd made a terrible mistake. The next morning brought a new humiliation. Marcus arrived at his supply closet to find that someone had taped a picture to his door. A cartoon janitor with a mop captioned, "Executive Material." He pulled it down, crumpled. It threw it away. Inside his desk had been moved. Just slightly, maybe 6 inches, so that now when he sat down, his chair hit the back wall and he couldn't fully extend his legs. A petty change, a small inconvenience. But that was the point, wasn't it? Death by 1,000 cuts. His computer had been logged out of the company system. When he tried to reset his password, an error message appeared. Please contact IT. Your access level does not permit this function. Marcus picked up his phone and called Jessica. They've locked me out of the system. A pause. I'll look into it. Jessica, this isn't a glitch. Another pause, longer this time. I know. I'll see what I can do. It took 3 days to get his access restored. 3 days during which Marcus couldn't check email, couldn't access company documents, couldn't do any of the basic functions his job supposedly required. When he finally logged back in, he found 147 unread emails. Most of them were meeting invitations to meetings that had already happened. Requests for input on decisions that had already been made. Updates on projects that had moved forward without him. He was being erased, slowly, methodically, deliberately, and there was nothing he could do about it. At home, the girls were starting to notice. Dad, you've been working late every night this week. Zoe was watching him over breakfast, her cereal growing soggy in the bowl. And you barely eat anymore. I'm fine, baby, just busy. You're not fine. Maya direct as always. Something's happening at work. We're not stupid. Marcus set down his coffee cup, looked at his daughters, really looked at them. 14 years old, old enough to sense when he was lying, young enough to still need him to be strong. Work is challenging right now. Challenging how? Some of the people there don't think I belong. Zoe's eyes narrowed. Don't think you belong? What does that even mean? It means they see a black man without a college degree and they've already decided what I'm worth. That's racism. That's the world, baby. It shouldn't be. No. Marcus reached over and squeezed his daughter's hand. It shouldn't be, but it is. And the question isn't whether the world is fair. The question is what you do when it isn't. So what are you doing? Marcus was quiet for a moment. What was he doing? Getting humiliated. Eating lunch alone while executives mocked him, watching his report get used as a coaster. I'm waiting, he said finally. I'm learning. I'm watching. And when the right moment comes, I'm going to show them exactly who they underestimated. Maya studied his face. Promise. Promise. Good. She stood up, grabbed her backpack. Because I told everyone at school my dad was going to change the world. Don't make me a liar. She kissed his cheek and headed for the door. Zoe followed, but paused at the threshold. Dad. Yeah. Those people who think you don't belong. They're wrong. And someday they're going to know it. Then she was gone, and Marcus was alone with his cold coffee and the weight of his daughter's faith pressing down on his shoulders. He couldn't let them down. He wouldn't. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon. Marcus was in his supply closet reviewing the latest batch of community engagement reports, busy work mostly designed to keep him occupied without actually involving him in anything meaningful when his personal cell phone rang. The number was from the community center. Mr. T. Keisha's voice shaky and strange. Something happened. Marcus's blood went cold. What? What happened? Are you okay? I'm fine, but you need to come. Now. He didn't ask questions. Didn't tell anyone he was leaving. Just grabbed his jacket and ran. The subway ride to the Bronx took 47 minutes. The longest 47 minutes of Marcus's life. His mind raced through possibilities, each one worse than the last. Fire. Violence. Someone hurt. Someone killed. When he finally reached the community center, he found Keisha standing outside with a group of kids, all of them looking shell-shocked. Keisha, talk to me. They shut us down. Keisha's voice cracked. The city. They came this morning with paperwork. said we're in violation of some zoning code, said we have to vacate by the end of the month. Marcus felt the ground tilt beneath his feet. That's not possible. We've been operating here for 15 years. We've never had any violations. I know. Keisha held out a folder of documents. But they have papers, official papers, and they said if we don't leave, they'll have us arrested for trespassing. Marcus took the folder, flipped through the pages. Zoning violations, building code issues, environmental concerns. Page after page of bureaucratic language that all added up to one thing: the community center was done. This doesn't make sense. He kept reading, looking for something, anything that would explain what was happening. We passed inspection 6 months ago. Everything was fine. Mr. T. Deshaun stepped forward, his young face twisted with anger. One of the inspectors, he let something slip, said this came from downtown, from people with money, said someone wanted this building for redevelopment. Marcus looked up. Redevelopment? Yeah, some tech company bought up half the block. They're building new offices or something. Marcus's hands started shaking. He knew, even before he looked at the redevelopment proposal, even before he saw the name on the paperwork. He knew. Wells Technologies. They weren't just trying to humiliate him at work. They were trying to destroy everything he'd built. That night, Marcus didn't go home. He sat in the empty community center surrounded by the computers. He'd fixed the books he'd collected, the chairs where kids had sat for 11 years learning things the world said they'd never understand. His phone buzzed. A text from Maya. Dad, where are you? He couldn't answer, couldn't find the words to explain what was happening, couldn't admit that he'd walked into the lion's den thinking he could make a difference, and instead, the lion had followed him home. Another buzz. Zoe this time. Dad, you're scaring us. Please respond. He typed back, I'm okay. Just dealing with something. Be home soon. But he wasn't okay, and he wasn't sure he'd ever be okay again. At midnight, his phone rang. Jessica's number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. Mr. Thompson. Her voice was quiet, urgent. I need to tell you something, but you can't ask how I know, and you can't tell anyone I called. Marcus sat up straighter. What is it? The community center closure. It wasn't random. Bradley Morrison pushed for it. He found out about your connection to the place, and he wanted to send a message. Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. What kind of message? That you're not untouchable. That even outside the office they can reach you. Mr. Thompson, these people don't just want you to fail, they want to break you. They want to make an example of what happens when someone like you tries to play in their world. Someone like me. Their words, not mine. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was steady, but there was something new in it. Something hard. Jessica, why are you telling me this? She hesitated. Because I've watched you for 2 months. I've seen how they treat you. And I've seen how you respond with dignity, with patience, with grace they don't deserve. Another pause. My father was like you, immigrant from the Philippines, worked his whole life for people who never respected him, never saw him. He died thinking he hadn't made a difference. Her voice cracked. He was wrong. He made a difference to me. And I think you're making a difference too. Even if they can't see it yet. Marcus closed his eyes. Thank you, Jessica. There's one more thing. The Tech Summit Gala. It's in 6 weeks. Catherine is receiving an award. She's required to bring the whole executive team, including you. It's going to be the biggest event of the year. Politicians, foreign delegates, international press. Why does that matter? Because it's the one night she can't hide you. The one night you'll be in the same room as everyone who matters. If you're going to make a move, that's when. She hung up before he could respond. Marcus sat in the darkness, phone still pressed to his ear, mind racing. 6 weeks. 6 weeks to figure out how to save his community center. 6 weeks of continued humiliation at work. 6 weeks of pretending everything was fine for his daughters. And at the end of it, one night, one chance. If he could hold on that long. The next few weeks were the hardest of Marcus's life. He worked 2 jobs again, just like the old days. Days at Wells Technologies, smiling through the contempt, attending meetings where no one listened to him, eating alone in the cafeteria while Bradley and Victoria performed their cruelty for anyone who would watch. Nights at the community center, fighting to keep it open, calling lawyers, filing appeals, reaching out to local politicians who promised to help and then went silent, trying to find alternative spaces, backup plans, anything to keep the kids from losing the one safe place many of them had ever known. "Mr. T, you look tired." Keisha handed him a cup of coffee, the cheap, instant kind, all they could afford. "When's the last time you slept?" "I'll sleep when this is over." "That's what you said last week." "And I'll say it again next week." He managed a weak smile. "Don't worry about me, Keisha. Worry about your SAT prep." "I finished the practice tests, all of them. Already. I'm fast." She sat down across from him. "Mr. T, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Why do you keep going to that company, I mean? They treat you like garbage. Everyone can see it. Why don't you just quit?" Marcus thought about the question. He'd asked himself the same thing 100 times over the past few weeks. "You know how I learned Swahili," he said finally. Keisha shook her head. "My mother used to tell me stories about her village in Congo, about the war, about losing everything, her family, her home, her country. And when I asked her how she survived, how she kept going when everything was gone, you know what she said?" "What?" "She said the river doesn't stop because of the rocks. It flows around them, over them, through them. The river always finds a way." Marcus took a sip of his coffee. "That company, those people, they're rocks. And I'm the river. They can make my path harder. They can try to dam me up. But they can't stop me. Because I've been flowing around rocks my whole life. And I know something they don't." "What's that?" Marcus smiled. "Water is patient. Water is persistent. And given enough time, water can wear down even the biggest rock." Keisha was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled too. "You're kind of poetic for a janitor." "Former janitor." "Whatever." But she was grinning now. "Mr. T, whatever you're planning for that gala, give them hell." At home, things were getting harder to hide. Maya found him one night at 2 a.m. sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop, scrolling through the same documents he'd been reading for hours. "Dad, you need to sleep." "I will, soon." She sat down across from him. "What are you working on?" He hesitated, then pushed the laptop toward her. "Read it." Maya's eyes moved across the screen. Her expression shifted from curiosity to confusion to anger. "They're shutting down the community center. They're trying. Because of you. Because you work for them. Because they want to remind me who has the power." Marcus rubbed his eyes. "I thought I could walk into their world and make a difference. Instead, they followed me back to mine and started burning it down." Maya was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was fierce. "Then burn theirs first." Marcus looked at his daughter, 14 years old, so much like her mother, it made his heart ache. "Maya." "No, Dad, listen to me. You've spent your whole life being patient, being careful, playing by their rules. And what did it get you? A supply closet and a coffee stain on your hard work." She leaned forward. "You're smarter than them. You speak more languages than they know exist. You understand things they'll never understand. Stop waiting for them to see it. Make them see it. It's not that simple." "Yes, it is." She grabbed his hand. "Dad, you taught us that our worth isn't determined by other people's opinions. You taught us to stand up for ourselves, to never let anyone make us feel small." Her eyes were blazing now. "So why aren't you taking your own advice?" Marcus couldn't answer. Because she was right. He'd been so focused on surviving that he'd forgotten how to fight. The day before the gala, Marcus received a package. No return address. Plain brown paper. Inside was a single USB drive and a handwritten note. Thought you might need this. The river always finds a way. J. Marcus plugged the drive into his laptop and found everything. Internal memos discussing how to manage the community center situation. Emails between Bradley and Victoria joking about putting the janitor in his place. Financial documents showing that Wells Technologies' African contracts were even worse than Marcus had suspected, not just exploitative, but potentially illegal. And at the bottom, a calendar invitation. The Tech Summit Gala. Tomorrow night. Catherine Wells, receiving the Innovator of the Year award. The entire international business community watching. Jessica had given him weapons. Now he just had to decide whether to use them. That night, Marcus sat with his daughters and told them everything. The humiliation. The community center. The documents Jessica had sent. The choice he faced. If I do this, he said carefully, everything changes. They'll come after me. They might fire me. They might try to destroy me. And I don't know what that means for us, for our family, for our future. The twins were quiet. Then Zoe spoke. Dad, when Mom died, you could have given up. You could have put us in foster care. You could have walked away. But you didn't. You worked 3 jobs to keep us fed. You stayed up all night when we were sick. You taught yourself languages so you could help other people even when no one was helping you. She reached across the table and took his hand. You've never walked away from anything hard in your life. Why would you start now? Maya nodded. Whatever happens tomorrow, we're with you. Always. Marcus looked at his girls, his reason for everything. The only thing in this world that truly mattered. Your mother would be so proud of you. She'd be proud of you too, Dad. Zoe squeezed his hand. Now go show them who they messed with. The morning of the gala. Marcus woke up early. He put on his best suit, still from Goodwill, still slightly wrinkled, but pressed with care. He knotted his tie carefully the way his father had taught him decades ago. He looked at himself in the mirror. 42 years old, gray at the temples, lines around his eyes from too many sleepless nights. But his eyes were clear, and his jaw was set. Okay, he said to his reflection. Let's go change everything. His phone buzzed. A text from Keisha. Watch the news. Wells Technologies CEO getting an award tonight. Saw they listed you as attending. Then another text. Mr. T. Whatever happens, thank you. For everything. Then one more. The river always wins. Marcus smiled and walked out the door. The Grand Imperial Ballroom was already buzzing with activity when Marcus arrived. He stood outside for a moment, watching limousines pull up one after another, disgorging passengers in designer gowns and custom-tailored suits. Diamonds caught the light. Champagne flowed. Laughter echoed across the marble steps, like the sound of money congratulating itself. Marcus adjusted his tie one more time, took a breath, and walked through the doors. The security guard barely glanced at his invitation before waving him through. Why would he look twice? Marcus was invisible. That was the whole point. Inside, the crowd was even more overwhelming. Politicians he recognized from television. Tech CEOs whose faces graced magazine covers. Foreign dignitaries with entourages trailing behind them. And everywhere, the subtle dance of power handshakes held a beat too long smiles that calculated more than they welcomed, eyes constantly scanning for someone more important. Marcus moved through the crowd like a ghost. No one approached him. No one greeted him. A few people glanced his way, quick assessments that registered his off-the-rack suit, his lack of obvious wealth, his blackness, and then looked away, already forgetting he existed. Thompson. The voice came from behind him. Marcus turned to find Bradley Morrison champagne glass in hand, flanked by Victoria Chen and 2 board members Marcus had never spoken to. Surprised they let you through the door. Bradley's smile was all teeth. Did you tell them you were with the catering staff? Victoria laughed. The board members chuckled politely. Marcus didn't respond. Cat got your tongue. Bradley stepped closer, lowering his voice so only their little group could hear. Listen carefully, janitor. Tonight is important. Catherine is receiving a major award. There will be press investors, people who actually matter. Your job is to stand in the corner, smile when someone points a camera at you, and for God's sake don't speak. Can you manage that? Marcus met his eyes, held them. I'll do what's appropriate. What's appropriate is knowing your place. Bradley drained his champagne. Remember, corner, smile, silence. That's all you're good for. He walked away, Victoria and the others following. Their laughter trailed behind them like perfume. Marcus stood alone, the USB drive heavy in his pocket. 14 minutes. That's what he'd told himself. 14 minutes until the awards ceremony. 14 minutes to decide whether to use what Jessica had given him. He could expose everything. The contracts, the emails, the deliberate destruction of the community center. He could burn it all down. Or he could wait. Watch. Let them think they'd won. His phone buzzed. A text from Maya. Watching the live stream with Zoe. We see you, Dad. You're not alone. Marcus looked around the ballroom. Hundreds of people, billions of dollars represented, and not a single person who saw him as anything more than a prop. But his daughters saw him, and that was enough. The cocktail hour stretched on. Marcus found a spot near a pillar where he could observe without being observed. He watched the dynamics of the room, who talked to whom, who avoided whom, whose laughter was genuine and whose was performance. He watched Catherine Wells work the room like a general surveying a battlefield. She moved from group to group, always in control, always commanding attention. People deferred to her. Powerful men leaned in when she spoke. Powerful women studied her with a mixture of envy and respect. And when her eyes occasionally swept past Marcus, they registered nothing. Not contempt, not even acknowledgement, just emptiness. To Catherine Wells, he literally did not exist. Quite something, isn't it? Marcus turned. A woman he didn't recognize had appeared beside him, older, perhaps 70, with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. The performance, I mean. She nodded toward the crowd. All these people pretending to like each other. Pretending to be impressed, pretending any of this matters. Does it matter? She smiled. That depends on who you ask. She extended her hand. Eleanor Whitfield, I'm on the board of 3 of the companies represented in this room. And I've been watching you for the past 20 minutes. Marcus shook her hand, suddenly wary. Marcus Thompson. I know who you are. The viral video. The community center in the Bronx. Her eyes were kind but probing. I also know what they've been doing to you at Wells Technologies. The supply closet. The exclusion. The coffee cup incident. Marcus's jaw tightened. You know about that. My dear, I know about everything. The benefit of being old and rich is that people forget you're listening. She took a sip of her champagne. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I'm not sure I understand. Yes, you do. Eleanor's gaze was steady. You have information. I can see it in your posture. The way you keep touching your pocket. You're carrying something that could change everything tonight. The only question is whether you have the courage to use it. Marcus was silent. Let me tell you something about this world, Mr. Thompson. These people, she gestured at the crowd, they feed on weakness. They smell fear like sharks smell blood. The moment they sense you're playing defense, they devour you. And the alternative, Eleanor smiled, attack, but not the way they expect. Not with anger or aggression or their own weapons turned against them. Attack by being exactly who you are, fully, unapologetically. Let them see something they've never seen before, a man who doesn't need their approval, their acceptance, or their permission to exist. She finished her champagne and set the glass on a passing waiter's tray. The award ceremony starts in 10 minutes. Catherine will give a speech about innovation and changing the world. It will be beautiful and completely hollow, like everything else in this room. She met Marcus's eyes one final time. The question is, when she's done performing, will you have the courage to show them something real? She walked away before he could respond. Marcus stood alone again, her words echoing in his head. Something real. The ceremony began at 8 p.m. precisely. The crowd filed into the main hall, taking seats at round tables arranged in concentric circles around a central stage. Marcus found himself at a table near the back, surrounded by junior executives and administrative staff, the supporting cast there to fill seats and applaud on cue. A sleek MC took the stage, running through the evening's agenda with practiced enthusiasm. Acknowledgements of sponsors, recognition of distinguished guests, a video montage celebrating 20 years of the Tech Summit, and then finally the main event. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor to present this year's Innovator of the Year award to a woman who needs no introduction. A visionary leader who has transformed Wells Technologies from a regional player into a global powerhouse. A pioneer who has broken barriers and shattered glass ceilings. Please welcome Catherine Wells. The applause was thunderous. Catherine took the stage like she owned it, because in many ways she did. She accepted the crystal trophy, kissed both cheeks of the presenter, and moved to the podium with the confidence of someone who had never been told no. Thank you. Thank you all so much. Her voice filled the room, warm and polished. This award means more to me than I can express. Not because of what it represents for me personally, but because of what it represents for our mission at Wells Technologies. She paused, letting the silence build. We are a company dedicated to changing the world, to bringing technology and opportunity to underserved communities, to proving that business and social good are not mutually exclusive. Marcus felt his stomach turn. This year, we are launching our most ambitious initiative, yet a global expansion into developing nations that will create jobs, build infrastructure, and transform lives. The crowd applauded. But I don't want to take all the credit. Catherine smiled, and for a moment, she almost looked humble. This initiative was only possible because of the amazing team at Wells Technologies, including our newest addition to the executive team, Marcus Thompson, our head of community relations. Heads turned, cameras swiveled. A spotlight found Marcus at his back table. Marcus, would you stand up, please? He stood. The applause was polite, scattered. Marcus came to us from the Bronx Community Center, where he spent over a decade serving underprivileged youth. His story is an inspiration, proof that hard work and determination can take you anywhere. Catherine's smile widened. We're so proud to have him on our team. More applause. Marcus remained standing, face carefully neutral. And actually, Catherine tilted her head as if a thought had just occurred to her. Marcus, why don't you come up here and say a few words? I'm sure everyone would love to hear from you. The room went quiet. This wasn't in the program. Marcus could see the surprise on the faces of the event organizers, the confusion among the board members. Even Bradley Morrison looked caught off guard. Catherine was testing him, putting him on the spot in front of the most powerful people in the city, daring him to either prove himself or humiliate himself. Marcus thought about the USB drive in his pocket, thought about the emails, the contracts, everything he could expose. Then he thought about Eleanor Whitfield's words. Something real. He walked to the stage. The spotlight followed him, harsh and unforgiving. Every step felt like a mile. He could hear whispers, feel the judgment, sense the anticipation of his failure. He reached the podium. Catherine stepped aside, her smile never wavering, her eyes cold as stone. Marcus looked out at the crowd. Hundreds of faces, billions of dollars, all waiting to see what the janitor from the Bronx would say. He took a breath. Thank you, Ms. Wells, for that generous introduction. His voice was steady, calm. And thank you all for being here tonight. He paused. Let the silence stretch. Ms. Wells said my story is an inspiration. That hard work and determination can take you anywhere. He nodded slowly. That's a nice story. It's the kind of story we tell ourselves to feel good about the way the world works. A murmur rippled through the crowd. But it's not the whole truth. The truth is, I've worked hard my whole life. My parents worked hard their whole lives. And most of the people I grew up with, the ones who are still alive, the ones who aren't in prison, They've worked hard their whole lives too. But hard work didn't take them anywhere. Hard work just kept them running in place while the world moved on without them. The murmur grew louder. I'm not here tonight because of hard work. I'm here tonight because of luck. Because someone recorded a video of me teaching kids to code, and that video happened to go viral. Because Wells Technologies needed a friendly black face to put on their marketing materials, and I happened to be available. Bradley Morrison was standing now, face red, moving toward the stage. Victoria Chen was whispering urgently into her phone. Marcus kept going. I've been at Wells Technologies for 4 months. In that time, I've been given an office that used to be a supply closet. I've been excluded from meetings where decisions were made without my input. I submitted a 47-page report with recommendations for the African expansion, a report that was used as a coaster for Ms. Wells' coffee cup. Gasps from the audience. Catherine's smile had frozen on her face. And when I tried to speak up, when I tried to contribute something real, I was told, and I quote, "Leave the thinking to people with actual qualifications." The room erupted, voices shouting, people standing. Bradley Morrison had reached the edge of the stage, face purple with rage. Get him off, cut his microphone. But the microphone was still on, and Marcus wasn't done. You want to know what I'm qualified for? Let me show you. He turned toward a group of delegates near the front, recognized the French ambassador who had been speaking with Catherine earlier. Monsieur l'ambassadeur, je voudrais vous adresser quelques mots concernant l'initiative africaine de Wells Technologies. The ambassador's eyebrows rose. Marcus continued in flawless French, outlining the specific problems with the Kenyan contracts, the exploitation, the marginalization of local businesses, the potential for catastrophic PR blowback. The room fell silent again, but a different kind of silent, shocked silent. Marcus switched to Italian, addressing the trade minister, then Spanish for the consul, then German for a group of European investors who had been whispering among themselves. Die Verträge, die Wells Technologies vorgeschlagen hat, sind nicht nur unethisch, sie sind möglicherweise illegal unter EU Handelsrecht. Bradley had stopped moving. His mouth hung open. Catherine's frozen smile had shattered entirely. Marcus turned to face a Chinese tech CEO near the front, a man he'd researched, a man whose company had been considering a partnership with Wells Technologies. And he began speaking Mandarin. Not just speaking, flowing. The tones perfect, the vocabulary precise, the nuances subtle and correct. He explained how the contracts would damage not just African communities, but Chinese business interests. How the short-term gains would lead to long-term losses. How there was a better way. When he finished, the room was absolutely still. No one moved. No one spoke. Marcus looked out at the crowd, at the shock on their faces, the disbelief, the sudden realization that they had completely, utterly, catastrophically misjudged him. I grew up in the Bronx, he said quietly. My mother was a refugee from Congo. My father was a teacher from Haiti. They didn't have money. They didn't have connections. They didn't have fancy degrees. What they had was love, and books, and a belief that their son could be anything he wanted to be if he was willing to work for it. He felt tears threatening pushed them back. I learned French from old textbooks, Italian from cooking shows, German from night classes at community centers like the one I ran for 11 years, Spanish from my neighbors, Mandarin from YouTube videos, and Chinese soap operas after my daughters went to bed. I learned because I wanted to understand the world. Because I wanted to connect with people. Because language isn't just words, it's a bridge. And I've spent my whole life building bridges. He turned to face Catherine directly. You asked me once what I brought to this marriage, I'm sorry, this company. What made me special? What qualified me to be here? Catherine said nothing. Her face was pale as marble. I brought myself, my experiences, my languages, my understanding of communities that you've never set foot in and never will. I brought decades of working with people you've dismissed as unimportant, learning from people you've written off as beneath you. He stepped away from the podium. You wanted a prop, a token, a friendly face to make your exploitation look humanitarian. But I'm not a prop, I'm not a token, And I'm not going to stand here while you pretend to help communities that you're actually destroying." The French ambassador stood up, then the Italian minister, then the Chinese CEO. One by one, people rose from their seats not in protest, but in something that looked almost like respect. Bradley Morrison rushed the stage, grabbing Marcus's arm. "That's enough security. Get him out of here." But the ambassador stepped forward, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Actually, I would very much like to hear more from Mr. Thompson. Perhaps over dinner tomorrow. I believe we have much to discuss." The Italian minister nodded. "As would I." The Chinese CEO approached, extending his hand to Marcus. "I have been looking for a bridge to African markets. Perhaps I have finally found one." Catherine watched it all unfold, her moment, her award, her carefully constructed evening crumbling around her. The guests she'd been courting for months were now crowding around the man she'd dismissed as nothing. She opened her mouth to speak, to regain control, to salvage something. But no words came, because for the first time in her life, Catherine Wells was invisible, and Marcus Thompson was the only person anyone wanted to see. The aftermath was chaos. Marcus found himself surrounded by diplomats, executives, journalists. Everyone wanted to talk to him. Everyone wanted to understand how this man, this janitor from the Bronx, spoke 5 languages fluently. How he understood international trade law. How he'd seen problems in contracts that entire legal teams had missed. "Mr. Thompson, Mr. Thompson." A reporter pushed through the crowd. "Can you comment on the allegations you made about Wells Technologies?" "Mr. Thompson, is it true you designed an alternative proposal for the African initiative?" "Mr. Thompson, where did you learn to speak Mandarin like that?" Marcus held up his hands, one at a time. "Please." Across the room, he could see Bradley Morrison in heated conversation with Victoria Chen. Catherine had disappeared, entirely retreated somewhere to regroup, to plan to figure out how to spin this disaster. Jessica appeared at his elbow, eyes wide. "Mr. Thompson, I've never seen anything like that." "Neither have I." He managed a small smile. "Thank you, Jessica, for everything." "I didn't do anything." "You did more than you know." Eleanor Whitfield materialized from the crowd, champagne glass in hand, looking thoroughly delighted. "Well, Mr. Thompson, I asked for something real." She raised her glass. "That was spectacular." "I'm probably unemployed now." "Almost certainly." She smiled. "But I suspect you'll have other opportunities. Rather a lot of them, actually." As if to prove her point, a distinguished-looking man in his 60s approached. Marcus recognized him from the financial pages, CEO of one of the largest investment firms in the country. "Mr. Thompson, I'd like to discuss a position at my firm. We've been looking to expand into African markets, and I believe you might be exactly what we need." Before Marcus could respond, another executive appeared. Then another. Then another. Business cards, meeting requests, partnership proposals. In the span of an hour, Marcus Thompson went from invisible to indispensable. But through it all, he kept looking at his phone, at the text messages from his daughters. "Maya, Dad, we saw everything. You were amazing." Zoe, "I'm literally crying. That was the best thing I've ever seen." Maya, the French part. "The Mandarin, Dad, you're like a superhero." Zoe, Bradley Morrison's face. "I screenshot it. It's going to be my wallpaper forever." Maya, "We love you. We're so proud of you. Come home soon." Marcus smiled at his phone. Everything else the job offers, the media attention, the complete upheaval of his professional life, all of that could wait. His daughters were proud of him. That was all that mattered. Near midnight, Marcus finally extracted himself from the crowd. His head was spinning. His voice was hoarse. He'd spoken more languages in one evening than he had in years. He found a quiet corner near the exit, leaning against a pillar, trying to process everything that had happened. Quite a performance. The voice was cold, controlled. Catherine Wells stood a few feet away, her Innovator of the Year trophy clutched in her hands like a weapon. Marcus straightened. "Ms. Wells, you humiliated me." Her voice shook slightly. In front of everyone who matters, in front of the entire industry, you destroyed months of work in a single speech. No. Marcus shook his head. You destroyed months of work with exploitative contracts and bad partnerships. I just pointed it out. You had no right. I had every right. You hired me for community relations. Tonight I related to the community, the international community. Isn't that what you wanted? Catherine's eyes blazed. You think this is a joke? You think you can embarrass me and walk away? I think I can tell the truth and see what happens. The truth? She laughed bitterly. The truth is that you're nobody, a janitor with a lucky video. You don't belong in this world, and no matter how many languages you speak, you never will. Marcus studied her face. The anger, the humiliation, the fear beneath it all. You're right, he said quietly. I don't belong in this world. Your world. A world where people are props, where communities are profit centers, where kindness is weakness. He shook his head. But here's the thing, Ms. Wells. I don't want to belong in your world. I never did. He started to walk away, then paused. One more thing. That community center you shut down, the one your company is bulldozing for redevelopment, that center has served over 3,000 kids in the past decade. Kids who had nowhere else to go. Kids who learned to read there, to code there, to believe in themselves there. He turned back to face her. Your contracts might be legal. Your expansion might be profitable. But legacy isn't measured in quarterly earnings. It's measured in the lives you touch, the people you help, the difference you make when no one's watching. Catherine said nothing. I hope you figure that out someday, before it's too late. He walked away. Behind him, Catherine Wells stood alone, clutching her trophy, watching the man she'd dismissed as nothing disappear into the night. Outside, the air was cold and clean. Marcus stood on the steps of the Grand Imperial Ballroom, breathing deeply. His hands were shaking. The adrenaline was fading, leaving exhaustion in its wake. His phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. You should check Twitter. He opened the app, scrolled for 3 seconds before his breath caught. Hashtag Marcus Thompson was trending. #1 in New York. #3 nationally. Videos of his speech were everywhere. Clips of him speaking French, Mandarin, German. Screenshots of Catherine's face as her evening collapsed around her. And the comments. This man is my new hero. How do you go from janitor to running the room in 5 languages? Wells Technologies just got destroyed, and I am here for it. Protect Marcus Thompson at all costs. Marcus closed the app, put his phone away. Somewhere in the Bronx, his daughters were waiting. Somewhere in the city, kids like Keisha and Deshawn were asleep, dreaming of futures that might actually be possible now. And somewhere, in ways he couldn't yet imagine, everything was about to change. Marcus hailed a cab. Where to? The driver asked. The Bronx. Marcus leaned back against the seat, finally letting himself smile. I'm going home. The cab pulled up to his building at 1:47 a.m. Marcus paid the driver, stepped onto the familiar cracked sidewalk, and looked up at the third-floor window where a light was still burning. His girls had waited up for him. He climbed the stairs slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. The adrenaline had completely drained away, now leaving behind exhaustion so deep it felt like it lived in his bones. The door flew open before he could get his keys out. Dad! Both girls hit him at once, nearly knocking him backward. He caught himself on the doorframe, wrapped his arms around them, and held on tight. We watched everything. Maya's voice was muffled against his chest. Every single minute. You were incredible. Zoe pulled back, tears streaming down her face. Dad, you were so incredible. Marcus felt his own eyes burning. I almost didn't do it. Standing up there looking at all those people. I almost just thanked them and sat back down. But you didn't. No, I didn't. They moved inside, settling onto the old couch that had been in this apartment since before the girls were born. Angela had picked it out. Said the color reminded her of autumn leaves. After all these years, the cushions were worn thin and the fabric was faded, but Marcus had never been able to replace it. "Tell us everything." Maya curled up against his side. The live stream didn't show what happened after. So Marcus told them, the diplomats approaching him, the job offers, Eleanor Whitfield and her champagne toast, the confrontation with Catherine in the corner. "She said you don't belong in her world." Zoe's eyes flashed with anger. "She actually said that." "She did." "What did you say back?" Marcus smiled tiredly. "I told her she was right. I don't belong in her world. And I don't want to." Maya was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Mom would have loved tonight." The words hit Marcus like a wave. He closed his eyes, remembering Angela's face, her smile, the way she used to say, "Marcus Thompson, you're going to change the world someday. You just don't know it yet." "Yeah." His voice was rough. "She would have." They sat together in silence, the three of them, until the girl's eyes started to droop. Marcus sent them to bed, promising they'd talk more in the morning. Then he sat alone in the dark living room, looking at the photo of Angela on the shelf. "I did it," he whispered. "I finally did it." The photo didn't answer, but Marcus could have sworn just for a moment that Angela was smiling. Morning brought chaos. Marcus's phone had died sometime during the night, and when he plugged it in, it immediately began buzzing with notifications. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Missed calls from numbers he didn't recognize. Emails flooding his inbox. Social media mentions that crashed the apps when he tried to open them. And texts. So many texts. From Jessica. "Call me when you wake up. Urgent." From Keisha. "Emsor. To you're famous." From numbers he didn't have saved, from names he vaguely recognized, from people he hadn't heard from in years. His landline rang, the old phone he kept mostly for emergencies. He picked it up cautiously. "Mr. Thompson? This is Sarah Chen from the New York Times. I was hoping to schedule an interview." "How did you get this number?" "Public records. Can we talk?" He hung up. The phone rang again immediately. "Mr. Thompson, CNN here. We'd love to have you on tomorrow morning." He hung up again. It rang a third time. "Marcus, it's Eleanor Whitfield. Don't hang up." He didn't hang up. "I imagine you're being bombarded right now," Eleanor said calmly. "The vultures always circle when there's blood in the water." That's a disturbing metaphor. But accurate. Listen to me carefully. You need representation. A publicist, a lawyer, possibly a security team. The next few weeks are going to be overwhelming, and you can't navigate them alone. "I can't afford any of that." "You can't afford not to." A pause. "I've taken the liberty of making some calls. My personal attorney will be at your apartment in 2 hours. My publicist will follow. They're doing this pro bono. Consider it an investment in someone I believe in." Marcus sank onto the couch. "Why are you helping me?" "Because I've been in this world for 50 years, and I've seen a lot of talented people get destroyed because they didn't know the rules. You have something rare, Marcus, something real. I'd hate to see it crushed before you have a chance to use it." "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll let me help." Marcus looked at the photo of Angela, at his daughter's bedroom door. "Okay, I'll let you help." True to her word, Eleanor's attorney arrived at 10 a.m. sharp. His name was David Park, mid-40s. Sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He carried a briefcase that probably cost more than Marcus's monthly rent. "Mr. Thompson." He shook Marcus's hand firmly. "I've reviewed the situation. You're in an interesting position." "Interesting how?" "Wells Technologies is in crisis mode. Their stock dropped 6% this morning. The African Union is threatening to review all existing contracts. The French ambassador has already issued a statement saying he looks forward to working with you, specifically you, on future initiatives." David set his briefcase on the kitchen table. "In other words, you've become valuable, and valuable people have options." "What kind of options?" "First, let's talk about your current employment. Technically, you haven't been fired. Catherine Wells hasn't issued any statement about your status, which means you're still on the payroll." Marcus laughed despite himself. You think they want me back? I think they're terrified of what happens if they fire you publicly. The optics would be devastating. Black man exposes company's problems. Company retaliates by terminating him. It would confirm everything you said last night. So what do I do? Nothing. For now, let them sweat. Let the situation develop. David pulled out a folder. Meanwhile, I've received 17 inquiries about your availability for consulting work, 3 formal job offers, 2 speaking engagement requests, and 1 very interesting proposal from the United Nations. The United Nations. They're launching a new initiative on global digital literacy. Someone saw your speech and thought you might be the perfect person to lead it. Marcus sat down heavily. This is insane. This is opportunity. David leaned forward. Mr. Thompson, 24 hours ago, you were invisible. Now you're one of the most talked about people in the country. The question is, what do you want to do with that attention? Marcus thought about the community center, about Keisha and Deshawn and little Marcus and all the kids who might lose the only safe space they'd ever had. I want to save my community center. David smiled. Then let's get to work. The publicist arrived an hour later. Her name was Maria Santos, and she walked into the apartment like she owned it. Marcus Thompson, I've been watching your videos all morning. She pulled out her phone, scrolling rapidly. You're trending in 14 countries. The French ambassador's statement alone got 2 million shares. And your daughters? She looked up. Where are they? School, I insisted. Good. Keep them out of this for now. The press will want access, but children should be protected. She sat down across from him. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to do exactly 3 interviews this week. I've already selected them, New York Times, CNN, and 1 smaller outlet to build authenticity. You'll tell your story. You'll be humble, gracious, and focused on the mission, not the personal drama. What mission? Whatever mission you want. That's the beauty of this moment, you get to define it. But you need to decide quickly, because right now, everyone else is defining it for you. She showed him her phone. Some people are calling you a hero. Others are saying you betrayed your employer. A few are questioning whether the whole thing was staged for attention. You need to take control of the narrative. How? By being clear about who you are and what you stand for. No ambiguity, no equivocation. People respond to authenticity, Marcus. That's what made your speech so powerful. It was real. Your job now is to stay real while the whole world watches. It was a lot to absorb. By noon, Marcus had signed a temporary representation agreement, scheduled his first interview, and reviewed a preliminary legal strategy for protecting the community center. His head was spinning. Dad? Maya appeared in the doorway home from school early. There are news vans outside. Marcus went to the window. 3 vans parked along the street. Reporters milling around, cameras ready. Don't go outside, Maria said immediately. Don't engage, I'll handle them. She marched out the door like a general heading into battle. Maya came to stand beside Marcus. Is this our life now? I don't know, baby. Maybe. For a while. Is it worth it? Marcus put his arm around her. Ask me in a year. The first interview was scheduled for the following morning. Marcus spent the evening preparing with Maria, going over potential questions, practicing answers, trying to find the balance between honest and strategic. They'll ask about Catherine Wells, Maria said. About your relationship with her. About whether you feel betrayed. I don't feel betrayed. I feel disappointed. She could have been different, could have listened, could have seen people as more than tools. Good. Say that. But don't attack her personally. Stay above it. What about the community center? Can I talk about that? Absolutely. That's your strongest asset. You're not doing this for yourself. You're doing this for kids who have no voice. That resonates. Zoe wandered in from her room. Dad, you know you're on Wikipedia now. What? Someone made a page for you. Marcus Thompson, American community organizer and polyglot. It's got like 300 references already. Marcus didn't know what to say. Also, Zoe continued, my friends want to know if you can come speak at our school. The principal called here and asked if you'd consider it. Marcus smiled despite himself. Tell them I'll think about it. I already told them yes. Zoe. What? You're inspirational now. Deal with it. The interview happened at a studio in Midtown. Marcus wore his good suit, still the same Goodwill suit, but Maria had gotten it professionally pressed. She'd also brought a stylist who'd trimmed his hair and suggested he not shave because a little stubble reads as authentic. The host was a woman he recognized from TV. Warm smile, sharp eyes. Marcus Thompson, thank you for being here. Thank you for having me. Let's start with the obvious question. Last week you were virtually unknown. Today you're a household name. How does that feel? Surreal. Marcus shifted in his chair. I keep waiting to wake up and find out it was all a dream. The speech at the gala was that planned. Did you know you were going to do that? No, I had information. I knew there were problems with the contracts, but I didn't decide to speak until I was standing at that podium. He paused. Actually, that's not entirely true. I think I decided when I saw the way they looked at me, the way they'd always looked at me, like I was nothing. How did they look at you? Like I was furniture, like I was there to fill a seat and smile for cameras, like my thoughts, my ideas, my experiences. None of that mattered because I didn't have the right degree or the right background or the right skin color. You think race was a factor? I think race is always a factor. Not the only factor, but never absent. When you're a black man in America, you learn very quickly that you're being judged by standards you didn't create and can never fully meet. You learn that your presence makes people uncomfortable, that your success makes them suspicious, that no matter how much you achieve, there will always be someone waiting to remind you where you came from. The host nodded slowly. Tell us about the languages. 8 languages fluently, that's extraordinary. How did that happen? Marcus smiled. My mother used to say that every language is a window into another world. She spoke 3 languages herself, all learned out of necessity, because she was a refugee, because she had to survive, because no one else was going to translate for her. My father was a teacher who believed that education was the only thing that couldn't be taken away. Between the two of them, I grew up believing that knowledge was the most valuable thing you could possess. But you didn't go to college. Couldn't afford it. My mother got sick when I was 17. My father was already working 2 jobs. I had to help support the family. But that didn't mean I stopped learning. I just learned differently. Libraries, night classes, language exchange programs, online courses. I spent 15 years teaching myself everything I could about the world, because I knew someday I'd have a chance to use it. And that night at the gala was that chance. That night was me being tired. Marcus's voice dropped. Tired of being invisible. Tired of being dismissed. Tired of watching people who had every advantage treat people with none like they didn't matter. I didn't give that speech because I had a plan. I gave it because I couldn't stay silent anymore. The interview went viral within hours. Marcus watched the clip spread across social media, watched the comment sections explode, watched his own face appear on television screens in restaurants and airports, and the electronics store down the street from his apartment. He was no longer invisible. He was everywhere. And with visibility came consequences. The first consequence arrived 3 days after the interview. Marcus was at the community center, still technically operating, though the demolition date loomed when Keisha burst through the door. Mr. T, you need to see this. She shoved her phone into his hands. On the screen was a press release from Wells Technologies. Wells Technologies announces major restructuring of African initiative. In light of recent feedback, the company will be conducting a comprehensive review of all partnership contracts in developing nations. Marcus kept reading and reading. The review, the restructured contracts, the commitment to local partnership and community involvement. It was almost word for word from his report, the same report Catherine had used as a coaster. "They're using your ideas," Keisha said, "without giving you credit." "Of course they are. Doesn't that make you angry?" Marcus set down the phone. "Keisha, when I was your age, I would have been furious. I would have wanted recognition, credit proof that I mattered. But I'm not young anymore. I've learned that it's not about who gets credit, it's about what gets done." "But they treated you like garbage." "They did. And now they're implementing my recommendations because they have no choice. Because the whole world is watching. Because their stock price depends on it." He smiled. "That's not defeat. That's victory." Keisha looked unconvinced. "It still feels wrong." "A lot of things feel wrong. Doesn't mean they're not right." The second consequence came a week later. Marcus was in his apartment reviewing documents with David Park when his phone rang. Unknown number, but something made him answer. "Mr. Thompson." A woman's voice, professional and crisp. "Please hold for Catherine Wells." Marcus's heart stopped. Then Catherine's voice, cool and controlled. "Marcus." "Ms. Wells." "I assume you've seen our announcement." "I have." "The board wanted me to call you personally, to clarify our position." "And what position is that?" A long pause. "We're withdrawing the demolition order for the Bronx Community Center. The development project will proceed on an alternative site." Marcus sat down slowly. "Why?" "Because the situation has become untenable. The press coverage, the public pressure, the damage to our brand, it's not worth a single building." Another pause, longer this time. "And because you were right." "I'm sorry." "You were right. About the contracts. About the approach. About all of it." Catherine's voice was tight, like the words were being extracted against her will. "I've spent 20 years building this company. I've made decisions that hurt people, and I told myself it was necessary. The cost of progress. But watching everything fall apart this month, watching the partners walk away, watching the stock price drop, I started to wonder if any of it was worth it." Marcus didn't know what to say. "I'm not apologizing." Catherine's voice hardened. "I don't apologize, but I am acknowledging that I underestimated you, that I dismissed you because of things that had nothing to do with your capability. That was a mistake." "Yes, it was. The community center will remain open. We'll even provide funding for the next 5 years if you'll accept it." "What's the catch?" "No catch. Consider it restitution." A pause. "And Marcus, for what it's worth, what you did at that gala was the most impressive thing I've ever seen. I hated it, but I was impressed." She hung up before he could respond. Marcus stared at his phone for a long time. Then he called Keisha. "Get everyone to the center. We need to talk." An hour later, Marcus stood in front of the same kids he'd been teaching for over a decade, Deshawn and Keisha, little Marcus and the others. Some of them had been coming here since they were 6 years old. Some had started just last year. All of them were looking at him now with a mixture of hope and fear. "I have news," Marcus said. "The community center isn't closing. Wells Technologies has withdrawn the demolition order and pledged 5 years of funding." The room erupted, kids jumping up and down, hugging each other, some of them crying. "Mr. T!" Little Marcus threw himself at Marcus's legs. "We get to stay. You get to stay." Keisha pushed through the crowd. What happened? What happened is that sometimes when you speak the truth loudly enough, even people who don't want to listen have no choice. Marcus looked around the room at these kids who had nothing and everything, who had been overlooked and underestimated just like him. But this isn't the end. This is the beginning. Because now we have a chance to build something even bigger. Something that can't be taken away. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I've been offered a position with the United Nations, a chance to build global literacy programs, to do what we've been doing here but on a scale we never imagined." He paused. "And I want to take you all with me." Silence. Then Deshawn spoke. With you, how? The first program will be here in the Bronx. A pilot project. If it works, we expand. But I need people who understand communities, people who've lived it, not just studied it, people like all of you. You want us to help run a UN program? I want you to help change the world. Marcus smiled. Unless you're too busy. The room exploded again. That night, Marcus sat with his daughters at their small kitchen table. They'd ordered pizza to celebrate something they only did on special occasions. The box sat between them, half empty, while Marcus told them everything. So we're not moving? Zoe asked. Not unless we want to. And the community center is safe. For at least 5 years, probably longer. And you're going to work for the United Nations. Part-time at first, consulting, building out the program. He looked at both girls. But I want you to know nothing changes for us. Not really. I'm still your dad. We're still a family. And no matter what happens, you will always be my first priority. Maya reached across the table and took his hand. Dad, everything changes. That's okay. We're proud of you. So proud, Zoe added, even if you're kind of embarrassing on TV. I'm embarrassing. You kept touching your tie. It was awkward. I was nervous. Obviously. But Zoe was grinning. Dad, you just want to know something. What? When you were up there on that stage speaking all those languages, standing up to all those people who treated you like garbage, I realized something. What did you realize? That I want to be exactly like you when I grow up. She paused, minus the tie touching. Marcus laughed. For the first time in weeks, maybe months, he laughed until his sides hurt. His girls were safe. His community was safe. His future was brighter than it had ever been. And somewhere he knew Angela was watching. She'd always said he was going to change the world. He just hadn't believed her until now. Later, after the girls had gone to bed, Marcus sat alone in the dark living room. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through the messages he hadn't had time to answer. Job offers, interview requests, congratulations from people he'd never met, and one message that made him stop. From Jessica. I'm resigning from Wells Technologies tomorrow. Wanted you to know that what you did inspired me to stop being part of something I didn't believe in. Thank you, Marcus, for everything. Marcus typed back, the river always finds a way. Good luck, Jessica. You deserve better. He set down his phone, looked at Angela's photo one more time. Then he went to bed, ready for whatever came next. 6 months passed faster than Marcus thought possible. The UN program launched in March on a gray morning that threatened rain but never delivered. Marcus stood outside the newly renovated Bronx Community Center, the same building that had almost been demolished, now transformed into the headquarters of the Global Bridges Initiative. Dad, you're doing the tie thing again. Zoe appeared beside him, reaching up to still his nervous hands. I can't help it. You've given like 50 speeches in the last 6 months. How are you still nervous? Because this one matters. And it did. Today was the official launch. Dignitaries from 12 countries, press from around the world, and most importantly, the kids. His kids. The ones who had been with him from the beginning. Keisha walked up, tablet in hand, looking every bit the program coordinator she'd become. Mr. T, the Kenyan delegation just arrived. They're asking for you. Tell them I'll be right there. Also, your mom called. She's watching the live stream from her nursing home. Said to tell you she's proud. Marcus felt his throat tighten. His mother, 87 years old, still sharp as ever, still telling everyone who would listen about her son who spoke 8 languages and changed the world. Tell her I love her. I already did. Keisha smiled. Now go. You've got a world to save. The ceremony was everything Marcus had hoped for, and nothing he'd expected. He watched as children from the Bronx stood alongside children from Kenya, Brazil, Germany, and China. Watched as they demonstrated the coding skills they'd learned together over video calls spanning oceans. watched as Deshawn, now 18, scholarship to MIT, starting in the fall, translated a speech from Portuguese to English with the same ease Marcus had shown at the gala. When it was Marcus's turn to speak, he didn't use notes. 2 years ago, he began, I was a janitor. The crowd shifted. Some of them knew the story, some didn't. I cleaned toilets, mopped floors, fixed broken computers with parts I found in dumpsters. And I thought that was my life. I thought the world had already decided who I was and who I could be. He paused, looking out at the faces before him. I was wrong. He told them about his mother, the refugee who learned 3 languages to survive. His father, the teacher who believed education was freedom. Angela, the wife who saw his potential before anyone else. His daughters who pushed him to be better than he thought he could be. The world will always try to put you in a box, he said. They'll tell you who you are, what you're worth, where you belong, and if you're not careful, you'll start to believe them. I almost did. He found Keisha in the crowd. Deshawn. Little Marcus, not so little anymore. But here's what I've learned. Your story doesn't end when they decide it ends. It doesn't end when they dismiss you, overlook you, try to erase you. Your story ends when you stop writing it. And as long as you keep going, keep learning, keep growing, keep fighting, they can never take that away from you. The applause was thunderous, but Marcus barely heard it. He was looking at his daughters standing in the front row, both of them crying. Proud tears. Angela's tears. And he knew in that moment that everything he'd been through, every humiliation, every dismissal, every moment of doubt, had been worth it. After the ceremony, the real work began. The Global Bridges Initiative wasn't just a program. It was a movement. Within 3 months, they had established centers in 7 countries. Within 6 months, 15. By the end of the first year, they had reached over 200,000 children on 4 continents. Marcus traveled constantly. Kenya, Brazil, Germany, Japan. Everywhere he went, he found the same thing. Kids who had been told they didn't matter discovering that they did. Mr. Thompson. A young girl in Nairobi, maybe 12 years old, tugged at his sleeve during a site visit. Is it true you taught yourself languages from cooking shows? Marcus laughed. Italian, yes. My mother-in-law. Well, my late wife's mother, she loved those shows. I watched them with her when she was sick. Didn't even realize I was learning until I caught myself ordering food in Italian at a restaurant. The girl's eyes went wide. I want to learn Italian. Then learn. Find a cooking show. Find a book. Find someone who speaks it. The resources are everywhere if you're willing to look. But what if I can't? What if I'm not smart enough? Marcus knelt down to meet her eyes. Do you know why I learned all those languages? She shook her head. Because everyone kept telling me I couldn't. Teachers said I wasn't academic enough. Counselors said I should focus on realistic goals. Employers said I didn't have the right background. He smiled. Every single one of them was wrong. And every single person who tells you what you can't do, they're wrong too. The girl stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded, something new in her eyes. Determination. Fire. I'm going to learn 5 languages, she said. Like you. I speak 8. Then I'll learn 9. Marcus laughed and shook her hand. Deal. Back home, life found a new rhythm. The girls were 16 now, finishing their sophomore year of high school. Maya had discovered a passion for international law, inspired by watching her father navigate global bureaucracies. Zoe was leaning toward linguistics. Someone has to beat your record, Dad. And was already fluent in Spanish and Mandarin. They still lived in the same Bronx apartment. Marcus could afford better now, much better, but the girls had insisted on staying. This is home, Maya had said when he'd suggested moving. This is where Mom's memory lives. This is where you built everything. Why would we leave? So they stayed. And every evening when Marcus was in town, they sat together at the same small kitchen table and talked about their days. Just like always. just like Angela would have wanted. The letter arrived on a Tuesday in October. Marcus was at the community center reviewing program reports when Jessica walked in. She'd joined the initiative 6 months after resigning from Wells Technologies and had quickly become indispensable. "This came for you." She held out an envelope. Hand-delivered. No return address. Marcus took it, frowning. The paper was expensive, heavy cream-colored, the kind that came from exclusive stationery shops. He opened it carefully. Inside was a single sheet of paper covered in careful handwriting. "Dear Mr. Thompson, my name is James Williams. I'm 44 years old, and 6 months ago I was ready to give up. I'm a single father like you. 3 kids ages 8, 11, and 14. Their mother left when the youngest was 2. Said she couldn't handle the pressure anymore. So it's been just me and them trying to make it work. I was a warehouse supervisor for 16 years. Good job. Steady paycheck. Then the company automated, and suddenly I was out. 44 years old, no degree, no other skills, no idea what to do next. I applied for everything. Got rejected from everything. Started to believe what everyone kept telling me, that I was too old, too unskilled, too late to start over. Then I saw your interview. I watched you talk about learning languages from cooking shows and YouTube videos. About being dismissed and overlooked. About never letting other people define your worth. And something clicked. The next day, I enrolled in a coding boot camp. Free program at a community center in Detroit. Turns out there are places like yours all over the country now. I studied every night after the kids went to bed. Failed my first certification exam. Passed the second. Last week I got hired as a junior developer at a tech startup. Entry level, but it's a start. My kids threw me a party with a cake that said Dad 2.0 because they think they're funny. I'm writing to say thank you. Not just for the programs you've built, but for showing me what's possible. For proving that it's never too late to become who you're supposed to be. You probably get letters like this all the time. But I wanted you to know that your story saved mine. With gratitude, James Williams. P.S. My oldest daughter says she wants to learn French. I told her to find a cooking show. Marcus read the letter 3 times. Then he sat down at his desk and wrote back, "Dear James, your story didn't need saving. It needed you to believe in it. Keep going. P.S. Tell your daughter to try Italian instead. The cooking shows are better." The letters kept coming. Hundreds of them. Then thousands. Single mothers in Ohio who'd gone back to school. Teenagers in Louisiana who'd started their own coding clubs. A 67-year-old grandmother in Arizona who'd learned Mandarin and was now teaching it to her grandchildren. Each letter was a story. Each story was proof that what they were building mattered. Marcus kept every single one. The call came on a Wednesday afternoon, 2 years after the gala. Marcus was in his office at the community center when his phone rang. A number he recognized but hadn't seen in a long time. "Mr. Thompson, this is Jessica. I'm calling with news about Catherine Wells." Marcus's hand tightened on the phone. "What about her?" "She's dying. Cancer. Stage 4. They found it 6 months ago, but she kept it quiet. She's in hospice now." A pause. "She wants to see you." Marcus was silent for a long moment. "Why?" She didn't say. But she asked specifically for you. Said it was important. Every instinct told him to say no. Catherine Wells had tried to destroy him. Had used his work as a coaster. Had dismissed him as nothing. But something else, something deeper, told him to go. "Where is she?" The hospice was quiet, private, expensive. Marcus walked through corridors that smelled like flowers and antiseptic, following a nurse who led him to a room at the end of the hall. "She's weak," the nurse said softly. "Don't tire her out." Marcus nodded and stepped inside. Catherine lay in the bed, smaller than he remembered. The fierce woman who had commanded boardrooms and intimidated executives was gone. In her place was someone fragile, human, dying. Her eyes opened when she heard him enter. Marcus. Her voice was a whisper. You came. You asked? I didn't think you would, after everything. He pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. What do you want, Catherine? She was quiet for a moment, gathering strength. I've been watching you, these past 2 years. The programs you've built, the lives you've changed. A ghost of a smile. You've accomplished more in 2 years than I did in 20. It's not a competition. Everything's a competition. That's what I always believed. She coughed weakly. I was wrong about a lot of things, but I was most wrong about you. Marcus waited. When you stood up at that gala when you started speaking all those languages, I hated you. Not because you were right, because you showed me what I could have been if I'd made different choices. If I'd seen people instead of opportunities. If I'd built bridges instead of walls. Her eyes were wet now. I've spent my whole life climbing, stepping on people, telling myself it was necessary, the cost of success. But now I'm here in this bed and I have nobody. My family won't come. My colleagues are already dividing up my company. The only person who agreed to see me is a man I treated like garbage. Marcus didn't know what to say. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Catherine continued. I don't deserve it, but I wanted you to know. What you did at that gala, it changed more than just the contracts. It changed me, made me look at myself, made me see what I'd become. She reached out her hand, trembling. You were the mirror I needed, even if I didn't want it. Marcus looked at her hand for a long moment, then he took it. I forgive you, he said quietly, not because you asked, but because holding on to anger only hurts the person carrying it. That's something my wife used to say. Catherine's grip tightened. She sounds wise. She was. She saw the best in everyone, even when they couldn't see it themselves. He paused. Even in you, I think. I doubt that. I don't. Marcus stood still, holding her hand. Catherine, it's not too late. You're still here. You can still make different choices. I'm dying. You're breathing. That's enough. He released her hand gently. There's a program we're launching next month. Educational resources for children of incarcerated parents. We need funding. We need visibility. We need someone who knows how to navigate corporate bureaucracy. Catherine stared at him. You want my help? I want you to finish your story differently than you started it. I want you to prove that who you were doesn't have to be who you are. He moved toward the door. Think about it. Marcus! He turned back. Why? Her voice cracked. After everything I did to you, why would you give me this chance? Marcus thought about his mother forgiving the country that had driven her from her home. His father forgiving the system that had undervalued him for decades. Angela forgiving him every time he doubted himself. Because everyone deserves the opportunity to become who they're supposed to be. Even people who've made terrible mistakes. He opened the door. That's what bridges are for Catherine. Connecting people who thought they'd never find their way across. He left her there thinking, crying, maybe, hoping for the first time in years. 1 month later, the Catherine Wells Foundation donated $50 million to the Global Bridges Initiative. She died 3 weeks after that. But in those final weeks, she made more calls, more connections, more contributions than she had in years of running her company. She reached out to people she'd wronged, apologized to employees she'd mistreated, set up scholarships for children in communities she'd overlooked. It wasn't redemption, not completely, but it was something. At her memorial service, small, quiet, nothing like the galas she'd once commanded, Marcus was asked to speak. He talked about second chances, about the human capacity for change, about a woman who'd spent her life building walls and in the end chose to build a bridge instead. Catherine Wells was not a perfect person, he said. Neither am I. Neither is anyone. But she taught me something important in those final weeks. It's never too late to start over. It's never too late to become who you're supposed to be. The only thing that can stop you is giving up. He looked out at the small crowd, former employees, a few family members, the people Catherine had reconnected with in her final days. She didn't give up. And because of that, thousands of children will have opportunities they never would have had. That's her legacy now. Not the company, not the money. The lives she touched when she finally chose to reach out. 3 years after the gala, Marcus stood on the stage at the United Nations General Assembly preparing to deliver the keynote address at the Global Education Summit. Behind him sat representatives from 47 countries. Before him, thousands of people who had traveled from around the world to hear about the initiative that had changed everything. His daughters sat in the front row. 18, now both of them. Maya had been accepted to Harvard Law. Zoe was headed to Columbia for linguistics. Both of them were crying before he even started speaking. "When I was a boy," Marcus began, "my mother told me that every language is a window into another world. At the time, I didn't understand what she meant. I thought she was talking about words, about grammar, about communication." He paused, letting the silence build. "I was wrong. She was talking about connection, about the ability to see another person truly see them and be seen in return. Every language I learned opened a door to people I never would have known, cultures I never would have understood, worlds I never would have imagined." He looked at his daughters. 3 years ago, I was invisible, a janitor from the Bronx who spoke 8 languages that nobody knew about. Today, I stand before you representing a program that has reached over 2 million children in 37 countries. Children who were told they didn't matter. Children who were overlooked, dismissed, forgotten. Children who are now learning that their stories are just beginning. He stepped away from the podium, moving closer to the audience. "I'm not here to take credit for that. I'm here to tell you that every single one of those children has the same potential I had, the same capacity for growth, the same ability to become something the world never expected. All they need is someone to believe in them, someone to open a door, someone to show them that the walls they see aren't permanent, they're just obstacles waiting to be overcome." He turned to face the representatives behind him. "You have the power to be that someone, not just for the children in your countries, but for every child everywhere who has been told they're not enough. Every child who has been dismissed because of where they came from. Every child who has looked at the world and wondered if there's a place for them in it." He returned to the podium, his voice rising. There is a place. And it's our job, all of our jobs, to make sure they find it." The applause shook the room. But Marcus wasn't finished. "I want to leave you with something my wife said to me 20 years ago before she passed. We were young, broke, scared about the future. And she looked at me and said, 'Marcus Thompson, you're going to change the world someday. You just don't know it yet.'" His voice cracked, but he pushed through. I didn't believe her. I thought she was just being kind, but she wasn't. She was seeing something in me that I couldn't see in myself. And that's what all of us can do for the children we serve. We can see their potential before they see it. We can believe in them before they believe in themselves. We can show them that the world is bigger than the boxes people try to put them in. He looked one last time at Maya and Zoe. "To my daughters, who have been with me through everything, thank you. You are your mother's legacy, and you are the reason I keep going." He stepped back from the podium. "To everyone watching, your story isn't over. It's just beginning. And the only person who gets to write the ending is you." That night, Marcus sat with his daughters in a small cafe near the UN headquarters. They'd escaped the crowds, the cameras, the endless congratulations. Just the 3 of them, like always. "Dad," Maya said, stirring her coffee, "do you ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't given that speech every day? And I'm glad I'll never know." He reached across the table and took both their hands. "I'm glad I took the risk. I'm glad I stopped being invisible. I'm glad I trusted that what I had to offer was worth sharing." Zoe squeezed his hand. "Mom would be so proud." "I know." Marcus looked up at the ceiling, imagining Angela watching from somewhere beyond. "She always knew, even when I didn't." They sat together in comfortable silence, Three people who had been through everything and come out the other side stronger. Finally, Maya spoke. So what's next? Marcus smiled. Next, we keep going. Keep building. Keep reaching kids who need someone to believe in them. And after that, we find more kids, more communities, more people who've been told they don't matter. He finished his coffee. Because here's what I've learned, the work is never done. But that's not a burden. That's a gift. It means there's always more good to do, always more lives to touch, always more bridges to build. He stood, leaving money on the table. Come on, let's go home. They walked out into the New York night, three figures disappearing into the city that had tried to break them and failed. Marcus Thompson started as a janitor from the Bronx who spoke 8 languages nobody knew about. He became a man who changed the world, not by becoming someone else, but by refusing to be anyone less than himself. The world will always try to put you in a box. It will tell you who you are, what you're worth, where you belong. But Marcus proved what his mother knew all along the river doesn't stop because of the rocks. It flows around them, over them, through them, and in the end, the river always wins.